And our top story this hour brings us here home, where the Commission of Inquiry into Editorial Interference, the SABC, has found that the newsroom took instructions from former Communications Minister Faith Muthambi and the former board chairperson, Tshabalala.
Inquiry Chair, veteran journalist Joe Thloloe, however, said that there's no evidence of a direct link between the SABC and the ANC, although he could not rule it out. Thloloe said that during Hlaudi Motsoeneng's tenure between 2012 and 2017, the broadcaster suffered from capricious use of power, of authority and power to terrorize staff.
The inquiry recommends that some of the decisions taken on Motsoeneng's instructions be reviewed.
We recommend that Motsoeneng's instructions to Human Resources to institute disciplinary hearings against employees or to dismiss, promote or appoint others must be reviewed. Also, Human Resources need to do an audit of the appointments, promotions or sideways shifts of senior news management. And the people we single out here are Notando Maseko, Sebulelo Ditlhakanyane and Charles Matko. We singled these out because we managed to have a look at their appointment processes, and we believe that that needs to be checked. Where the records are found to be incomplete and the gap is not explained, the appointment promotion must be reversed and the position re-advertised, with the person currently occupying it being invited to reapply, so they are not prejudiced in this process.
All right, so that was Joe Thloloe speaking a little bit earlier on.
Meanwhile, the Commission also found that the staff at the public broadcaster were gripped by anger and fear.
SABC suffered from the capricious use of authority and power to terrorize staff and to deflect the corporation from its mandate and its editorial policies. We found an organization crippled by pain and anger and fear, by frustration, anxiety and apathy, and by inattentiveness, detachment and helplessness.
SABC Board chairperson Bongumusa Makhathini delivered a response from the public broadcaster.
In this regard, the SABC commits to taking urgent disciplinary action against those implicated in terms of the SABC disciplinary code and policies. The notion that holding those implicated in wrongdoing accountable would be seen as witch hunt is rejected. In fact, it is part of the terms of reference of the inquiry to recommend appropriate corrective action, which may include disciplinary action where there is misconduct. It is the SABC view that due process must be followed when there is evidence of transgression of SABC's policies and procedures and related misconduct. The SABC wants to put on record that it will not tolerate any interference with editorial independence of the newsroom.
Well, mentioned in that report was the capricious use of power and leaving the staff in a state of fear and anger. And to talk to us a little bit about the people management side of some of the effects that we saw and heard about in that report, I'm now joined by Dr. Laurentia Truter, who's a labour expert with the Institute of People Management. Thanks so much indeed for joining us. Welcome to the programme. One of the things that stood out in that SABC report was an atmosphere of fear and anger. And as a person who deals with people management, a lot needs to have happened systematically over time for there to be an atmosphere such as that.
It's very unfortunate, Peter, to hear that that is indeed the culture and the staff's feeling and the morale at the SABC currently. Obviously, it will call for interventions. You won't fix a problem that was established over a period of years. You won't fix overnight. So I think the new leadership and management will have to take concerted efforts to address the staff morale and the organizational culture.
How does something like that happen? I mean, can one person on their own cause a reign of terror, or does there have to be buy-in by certain people? And I ask this so that, you know, again, going forward, one can start to think about the type of people management that's required.
I think it's typically not just one person that creates this atmosphere in a workplace. You have people that participate in it, either for their own benefit or they themselves maybe are fearful. But fact of the matter is, it is something that is where a group of people is involved, your leadership, your management, and over time it permeates throughout your whole organization. And it's also then not just one person that can turn that around, because you need different people on different levels in the organization to buy into a changed culture. So what one would want to see is concerted efforts by the board of the SABC, their executive management. We've got now acting executives that can hopefully bring some change into the organization. But I think what is important is that employees themselves also need to take ownership of this process. It's important that we hear the voice of the employees in how did we get to this place, what is it that we need to change, and how are we going to change it. So I see this as a combined effort from both management, the executive, and employees to bring a desired change in the organization.
And how do you bring people forward? Because, you know, if you've been silenced for so long and you're fearful, it's not easy to trust that things have changed overnight.
Look, there are different ways that we typically manage people issues. Something like an anonymous survey where we ask specific questions that staff can participate in and where they can disclose without fear of retaliation. That would be one way that's commonly used. Obviously, you want that exercise to be constructive and not just to revisit or rehash all the old problems, but rather for staff on an anonymous basis also to give input on remedial actions that are required. I would also suggest that staff must actually use the channels that are available to them. Within the SABC, there must be structures where collective bargaining takes place, the unions that are active. There must be structures like an employment equity forum. So depending on the issue, all of those structures and forums should also be used as a way where plans can be drafted and implemented and progress measured. Otherwise, you know, it also happens often that things just stay a talk where we actually need measures to be implemented. So yeah, those would be some of the things. Yeah. Other initiatives, and I think the report also indicated that there's a need for training and exposing people to what are their rights in the workplace. How do I go about to bring wrongdoing to the attention of my manager or to the executive? So the whole ethics of the company actually also needs to be addressed and re-established and entrenched, that people over time will live that changed organization.
So the report also talks about accountability and restitution, and I just wonder how you balance, you know, people who were following instructions on the one hand and people who did wrong at the behest of other people who may still be within an organization such as ours, walking around, and so, you know, people are pointing fingers at them. How do you manage this scenario? Because you can't get rid of everybody, I guess, and some people were following instructions, others perhaps were perhaps more enthusiastic with those instructions.
Look, I think one will obviously need to look on a case-by-case basis. Why did a person act in a particular fashion? So one can't just say that everybody that's been involved necessarily must be dismissed. One will still have to look at the circumstances, and that's why a fair procedure with each of the persons implicated is obviously paramount. That they also be given a chance to explain why they did certain things. There might be mitigating factors that play a role into them adhering to certain instructions, and a chairperson of a disciplinary inquiry will have to consider all of those things. Also then to come to a fair conclusion on a particular individual's role. I think if the person just acted in their own best interest, that would be distinguishable from a person that maybe had some real fear of what could happen to them in those circumstances. Fact of the matter is, ultimately the question is, did you comply with the established policies and procedures? Now, did you comply with lawful instructions, or did you actually participate and make illegal and unfair actions possible? And I think maybe, and another thing just to add is, one of the recommendations I understand from the report is that HR needs to review all the decisions taken in that period from 2012 to 2017 relating to recruitment, promotions, demotions, disciplinaries. That will obviously be a huge task, and it can have serious implications to the SABC as to how do you now actually unravel that, and how do you compensate for any wrongdoing maybe that has been committed against individuals.
All right, so perhaps finally, I mean, this is definitely a long journey to reach the hearts and minds of people and engender a new culture in an organization. From your experience, how long would a process like this take to get to a place where people are happy, they feel safe, and that terror and anger are a thing of the past?
Peter, I think it's difficult to estimate. I don't think it will be months, it will rather be years. And why I'm saying that is, one can always put short-term measures in place, like your training, like your whistleblowing structures, and reinforcing those things. But to bring about a change in the hearts and the minds of people, that is always a difficult thing. And I think what will be very important is whether the new executive is actually seen to not just be talking, but to be acting in line with the new organizational culture and the values and the ethics that it's trying to establish. They say proof is in the pudding. And I think it's only then when employees see the change that they will also live the change. So I don't think it's something that will just happen overnight.
All right, so Dr. Truter, thanks so much indeed for talking to us and sharing your insights with us on this day.